It was time to get the ball rolling on my final teaching practice, and the questions started popping in my head as decision time was here. What unit should I choose? Which class should I plan for? What lesson should I do? I eventually settled on a common unit of statistics. The planning phase of this unit began with the construction of a learning hierarchy. This component is extremely important since it gives a clear view of the content to be covered, thus allowing the teacher to logically sequence concepts and skills to maximize learning. Next, it was on to the unit plan. In my perspective, this part of the teaching documents is the most challenging because it requires the teacher to really zoom in on the learners and put careful thought into selecting teaching strategies that are properly aligned to students' needs, since, as the saying goes, teaching is not a one size fits all. For far too long, teaching methods have targeted only a few learning inclinations, and those with other styles have been shortchanged. I believe that teaching has to become dynamic if it is to remain relevant in the 21st century. This philosophy played a critical part of the unit plan development, in which a wide variety of student-centered techniques were used to promote student engagement. Selection of activities required careful consideration of learning goals and the target audience to ensure that they would meet the intended objectives. Within the unit, a lesson on constructing an ungrouped frequency table was chosen for the final teaching practice. It has always been my philosophy that lessons should be designed to shift the focus away from the teacher and towards the student. Such a classroom setting necessitates a deviation from traditional methods and towards techniques through which students are actively engaged. As a result, a combination of guided discussion, inductive inquiry, demonstration, and cooperative learning were used. The classroom was organized into groups to encourage collaborative work. One of the challenges I've experienced with this class is the time taken for them to get settled. Thus, an activity which limited movement while still appealing to their interest was chosen for the set induction, since I could have foreseen a potential management issue arising if too much movement was involved. Section 1 of the lesson focused on the importance of data organization. I strongly uphold the view that students should not be forced to accept information, but that emphasis should be placed on the construction of knowledge through activities which spark discussion and enhance students' understanding. In keeping in line with this perspective, questions were used to inspire discussion on the benefits of data organization. This strategy contributed to the fostering of an environment in which students could share their ideas freely, allowing them to have an input into their education and motivating them to learn. With this class, students tend to blurt out responses to get the satisfaction of answering before others. This potential issue was addressed by reminding them of the basic guidelines before beginning the lesson. The sectional review activity was also chosen to activate this competitive nature while building cooperative skills. Inductive inquiry was the main strategy for the next section of the lesson, which made use of technology. Since the technological environment is the one with which 21st century learners are most familiar, in my view, its incorporation into teaching is no longer just an option, but a necessity. I also believe that students are motivated and show greater interest when they can establish a link between the academics and the real world, and therefore a video which utilized a real-life example was selected. The cooperative strategy used encourages the merging of ideas, while the teacher-student interaction helps to develop a strong bond, which I believe is essential since it causes students to see the teacher as someone who genuinely cares about bringing out the best in them. The provision of individualized attention also gives the teacher a better understanding of learners, which provides valuable information for more effective tailoring of lessons. Formative assessment was incorporated throughout the lesson, and the lesson was consolidated by linking the set induction to the objectives. These reflect my view that as teachers, we are teaching students and not a syllabus, and therefore it makes no sense moving forward if our learners are not comfortable with previous content. The final assessment required students to summarize what they learned during the session and stick it to a poster to resemble a Facebook newsfeed. This form of assessment was selected since Facebook is something they could identify with. It encourages freedom of expression and gives the teacher an insight into the thoughts of learners. To deal with potential disruption in a group setting, control was achieved by moving around the class throughout the lesson to monitor students and ensure that they stayed on task. Additionally, positive feedback was provided to increase students' confidence and participation in the lesson, and in the selection of groups, it was ensured that a heterogeneous grouping system was used to avoid the possible issue of discrimination and disruption. The process of designing this unit has allowed me to more clearly see the importance of diversifying strategies and tailoring lessons to more effectively target the individual needs of my learners and deconstruct tasks in order to maximize efficacy in the teaching process. It has opened my eyes to critical considerations which many teachers, including myself, sometimes overlook in our planning, and has caused me to come to a greater realization that attention must be paid to every minor detail if the lesson is to come together as intended. One of the things that stood out to me was the fact that regardless of how well we prepare, as teachers, we must realize that the nature of our profession means that unexpected situations which require impromptu intervention may arise. Time management is also critical in the planning stage to ensure that sufficient time is allocated to activities without compromising the achievement of the specified objectives. This is an area which I have struggled with, but the design of this lesson has definitely given me a better understanding of how to manage my time during my teaching. The strategies utilized were chosen based on a combination of factors. Firstly, the class being taught was Form 1, and characteristic of this level is a relatively short attention span. Consequently, learners tend to gravitate towards active learning methods that are student-focused. Secondly, it is common knowledge that many students consider mathematics to be one of the most difficult subject areas. This mindset causes them to lose interest very quickly, especially when the traditional lecture-type teaching methods are used. Therefore, the lesson was designed to maximize engagement through activities so that students had an input into their learning. The planning and execution of this lesson has also broadened my knowledge of pedagogy and has certainly contributed significantly to the development of my teaching skills as I continue on my journey to becoming the professional teacher.